Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McRae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Wesley. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Have you been behaving yourself today?
I have. I am working on sticking to stretching more frequently because I was not during the whole phase of having my boot on. And when you're uneven in levels, the hips and everything go a little awry. So that is the new goal for this upcoming week is
I hadn't even thought about that. Like you always want to put a wedge on your non-pert foot.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. Huh. And I can't sneak up on anybody with a boot on either, I've learned. It's very loud.
She's going as a mummy for Halloween.
So it'll be nice to be in both sneakers again soon. So I am really looking forward to that.
Imagine saying that in your 20s. I can't wait to be back in my sneakers, not in my like sky high heels.
No. Sky high heels and flats are not in my future. It's all supportive shoes. Get some nice support.
Fine. Sneakers are all the rage.
They are. It's really what I live in, so it works. Have you been behaving yourself this week?
Yeah, I have. I've been behaving myself well today. We always record on a Sunday, and every Sunday I always have an afternoon nap, and something's really awry if I don't have a nap. So I had a blissful hour's nap. I had planned out my food and exercise and everything for the coming week. So yeah, I feel set up for the week, which is a nice way to feel.
I love it. I love a good weekend nap. It's so nice.
I wish I didn't have to, because I know it doesn't help you catch up on sleep per se, but I am not the best sleeper in the world. And I just find it really restorative, and I get really cozy with a blanket. It's nice. It's my week of sleep.
Yes, I love it. So today we're going to talk about some nutrition. We had talked in the past about not failing in fall, being awesome in autumn, and how we can kind of navigate this next season, moving into the colder months. We talked on the last podcast about staying active and exercise and how to get moving and stay moving in these colder months. But we also need to look at the nutrition side of it because everything does work together. So chatting with Jo a little bit, since this is her area of expertise. So Jo, in your perspective, what is health? What is nutrition?
This was something that kind of cropped up in my mind after last week's podcast and the week before, when we were talking a lot about balancing our goals and what we're doing. And so I actually looked up the definition of health. Like, it's not just weight loss. So the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease, which I really like, because it's not just focusing on the physical, it's kind of all-encompassing. So you might have the kind of body of a bodybuilder or a figure skater or whatever, but if you've got no friends and you are depressed and anxious, you're not healthy. So I like that. And so I guess from that, then we could take overall look at our life and look at what in our life is missing, or what we are wanting to work towards in terms of the physical, the mental, and the social, and then maybe define some goals from that.
I love that definition and that encompassing of the social piece too, especially during these times of isolation and quarantine, how that really affected the mental health side of it too, and that social, and then it probably led into the nutritional health and exercise health, and everything really was this big connective piece.
Yeah, totally.
So what do we do to figure out where we're at and where we need to go with determining our health and what we need to do.
I think we're going to hear a lot of repeats on this podcast because we're behavior analysts. We're always going to start with a baseline. So a baseline of where are you at currently? There's no point thinking that during fall or winter, you're suddenly going to start eating 12 portions of fruit and veggies a day and doing 100 minutes of exercise if you're currently eating mac and cheese all day, every day. So take some baseline data, like what are you currently doing? What are you currently eating? How often are you currently eating? How much are you currently eating? How many portions of different things are you eating? And just take some baseline data, maybe take some baseline data of your weight, how much you're sleeping, is your period cycle regular, and just take some baseline of where you're currently at to then be able to define a goal that is realistic.
I love that. I love the looking at your sleep too, because that's really going to affect your energy and then affect your choices on food. And you might talk about that a little bit later in terms of how those two kind of interact with each other.
Totally. Yeah.
So we've got our baseline, where we're at. What do we do once we've got that data to make a decision moving forward if we don't like the data or if we do like the data?
If you like the data, great, keep on going. I think it's always good to have a goal though. And if you don't like the data, working out what it is about the data that you don't like and working out what you could do to change it. So say, for example, you realize that you are only sleeping for 4 hours a night, going and researching some sleep hygiene. And there's loads of free stuff online and TED Talks, and then working out how to try and make that better. Or if you're eating, as I said, mac and cheese all day, every day, maybe you don't like that, working out how could you squeeze in 1 more vegetable a day or 2 more vegetables a day and progressively making it easier, or making your daily behaviors more aligned with your values and your goals. So then going back to the World Health Organization's definition of health, looking at the physical and the mental and the social and working out what for now is a priority for you. I think you could try and give yourself a goal for all 3 areas, and it's just not realistic. Behavior change is simple, but it's not easy, and it can be really hard. So if you give yourself new goals for each 3 areas, you're not going to have the energy and the time and the motivation to be able to do all 3, just choosing maybe 1 or 2 at a time. What's the priority for you right now? So particularly, say, going into winter, for me, the mental and the social takes priority over the physical. I would never choose, say, a muscle building goal during this period. I find that really hard. I find it hard to eat in a surplus. I find it hard to lift progressively heavier weights. My form clearly is terrible because I pull my shoulder and neck left, right, and center. So I would never choose that. I would choose that kind of goal in the spring or in the summer. So choosing which is a priority for you, given what you have coming up. Maybe you have massive family events and you need to consider that. Yeah.
I like that. It's specific to each person. So, right. So you wouldn't choose it, but if your client came and was like, I want to build muscle during this time, it's still possible, but it's not your individual goal and what works for you, which I think is really important to touch on. Of every single body and every individual is so different with our goals and our priorities.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember as a coach as well, my goals are not your goals. And you might see what I do on Instagram. It doesn't mean that I'm going to choose the same goals for you. And I'm certainly not, even if you do have the same goals, I'm probably not going to choose the same method of reaching those goals as for you, because we're just so different. And we have different learning histories. We have different biology. It has to be so individual. So ideally, you would have a coach help you define what your values are, pick your goals accordingly, and pick the behaviors, how to track them, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe we can do a few podcasts on all of those things. I think they'd be really helpful. But this time in particular, and you mentioned it before, going into the colder months around coronavirus times, what I've seen particularly so far, and knowing that we've been in summer so far, is that down to COVID, there has been a massive over-reliance on food, and people have really used it as a crutch. You only needed to look at the supermarket shelves when lockdown in England I don't know if it's the same in America, when lockdown first hit, the shelves were empty. And it wasn't the fruit and vegetables and lean meats that went first. It was the cakes and the biscuits and the chocolate.
Yep. Our pasta aisle was also gone. There was no pasta. There was no frozen vegetables. So we were apparently buying some frozen veggies, which was, a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the frozen pizzas were all gone as well. That was a big, and toilet paper.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep referring back to it, the kind of total view of health, mental, social, and physical. People were obviously recognizing that the mental and social were out of kilter, and they focused on what physically felt good, which was food. Mm-hmm. And I think particularly going into winter and going into times where we typically have traditions like Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, there's going to be a real, I don't know, I think people are going to over rely on food to fill in traditions and fill in those home comforts that they can't get elsewhere, because maybe we won't be able to spend Christmas at grandma's house, and maybe we won't be able to have Thanksgiving at, mum and dad's house. So I think now would be a really good time to sit back and have an overview of what your true values are around Christmas and around these traditional times. Are my values to do with enjoying Christmas food? No, not at all. It's more to do with spending nice time with family and friends. But defining that now can then put me in a mindset for later of, I don't need to have all the food and do all the food things. Instead, I can focus my energy on making different traditions. So it might be, instead of seeing grandma, sending her, particular cards and notes throughout the season, but having a think about the potential for an over-reliance on food instead of mental health and instead of social, where you could replace the social and mental health with other things. I don't know if that made sense. I felt like that was a bit waffly. Did that make sense?
It does. And it's very apparent for many people. And I've met a lot of women just recently, and a lot of my clients, food was a huge crutch during COVID. And most of the clients coming into the gym as new members, their goal is to lose the COVID weight. So we're now identifying this weight as because of COVID. And it's the way that we've used food to cope with that time. And we're going back into this winter season where outdoor activities are not going to be as readily available. What do we kind of look at for how to navigate the nutritional side and meals in these winter months? How do we navigate these like better choices versus nice, cozy mac and cheese, which is really good, but it's not always, we can't have it all the time. So what are kind of the little tips to navigate more healthful foods in the winter months?
Great question. First of all, have some kind of routines in place. And those routines could be having the same breakfast every day. And it's a breakfast that fits your values. So it could be eggs and veggies for breakfast. It could be a salad for breakfast. Like, I don't know when humanity decided that breakfast has to be sugar and carb filled. It doesn't. It could be leftovers from your dinner the night before. Have some kind of routine in place for maybe breakfast, where you have the same breakfast each day. It could be a nice new routine of always taking a walk with the family after dinner. It helps digestion. It's great for social and connection. It's extra steps in your day, so extra kind of burning calories. But get some kind of routine in place so that, particularly when you're off work and with family, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever weekend or holiday, you've got some kind of structure in place where you know that at least you'll have some reliable goodness in the day. So definitely get some good routines in, have some non-negotiables. So this is kind of connected to routines, but that by bedtime, there are certain things that you have to have done. It could be drinking 2 liters of water. This period, I think more so than summer, is the season of dehydration. In the summer, we're so aware of carrying a water bottle around with us because the sun's hot. But actually in the winter, everyone turns the central heating on, which is really dehydrating. Certainly I drink a lot more wine and during festivities, we drink wine and alcohol. That's really dehydrating. A lot of the wintry foods, things like soups and casseroles, have more salt in than, say, our summery salads do. So, drinking more water. So, say a non-negotiable could be drinking 2 or 3 liters of water a day. It could be getting X number of fruits and veggies in per day. It could be getting X number of steps in per day. But you have, say, 2 or 3 non-negotiables that you have to do, come rain or shine, every day. And don't make them too tricky, because obviously if they're non-negotiables and you have to do them and they are impossible, don't set yourself a target of 30,000 steps a day. You're not going to do that on Christmas Day.
That's so interesting with the heat. I don't know that I'd ever thought about that. And it makes sense with the soups and casseroles being a little bit more salt heavy to lead to that dehydration. So big goal. And hydration is a huge thing for so many people. And I think we'll definitely do an episode on, staying hydrated. You're a houseplant. You basically just need to water yourself and give yourself some sun.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
And so what about, so we've got this plan for nutrition and we've got this plan, but what if something comes up? What are these obstacles that might come up for people or that have come up for people in the past how do we navigate them? What kind of antecedent or plans that we can put in place before those obstacles do come up? What do you typically see?
Yeah, I guess the biggest one in this time of year is people typically get sick. They might get coughs and colds. And I think I said a few weeks ago, you don't have to. There's no particular reason why the weather gets colder, therefore you get sick more. I think a lot of it is in people's own heads. So stop telling yourself that you are going to get sick, because the more you tell yourself that, guess what? The more you probably will get sick. But let's kind of look at our immune system on a daily basis. Before you get sick, trying to get as a robuster immune system as you possibly can. Apparently 70% of our immune system is in our GI tract, which is incredible, because if it was in our ears, we don't have a huge, or in our noses or throats, we don't have a huge amount of access to that. What you put into your mouth goes into your GI tract, and 70% of your immune system is down there. So making sure that you have a wide range of foods, as many prebiotics as you can get in. So prebiotics are the things that feed the good bacteria in your gut. And so prebiotics can be found in things like vegetables and whole grains and fruit and seeds. You can get them in supplement form, but I don't know why you would if you could just eat these delicious things. Getting in lots of probiotics. So those are the good bacteria, the things that feed your gut with all the kind of good bacteria, is going to help the immune system. And again, you can find these in food sources like dairy and fermented veggies and soy, and even wine has probiotics. So that's exciting.
Perfect.
And you can supplement with probiotics, and there's some really good research, particularly if you have been ill, supplementing probiotics. And I'm sure that if you are this person, you'll already know this, but if you are immunosuppressed for whatever reason, maybe you have HIV, maybe you've been on chemotherapy, don't take probiotics without chatting to your doctor first. And then I guess if you do get sick, what to do then? It's really tempting to think, I'm getting a bit sick, I've got a bit of a sore throat. And I hear a lot of people say, I'll run to the shops and buy orange juice because it's got loads of vitamin C. Mm-hmm. Actually, it does have vitamin C, but it has a whole lot more sugar. And sugar has been shown to suppress our immune system. So I know when you're feeling crappy, it's really tempting to revert to things that feel good to us, like sugary things. And maybe orange juice feels good on your throat, but actually it's going to do nothing for you. A portion of broccoli has more vitamin C than a glass of orange juice. So don't rely on sugar. It's not going to help you. Rely on the kind of good food sources. And actually the research as to what to eat or how much to eat is completely out. There is no mass of studies showing that eating these things or not eating is the best way forward. Everyone is a bit kind of confused. There's the age-old saying of starve a cold and feed a fever. And this is a really old-fashioned saying that actually has nothing to do with food. So don't panic yourself about that. It's to do with temperature. If you have a cold, you shouldn't put loads of jumpers and scarves and blankets on. You should starve it. And if you have a fever, you need to feed it and put loads of hats and scarves and gloves on, because that's what's better physiologically for you. There's some evidence to suggest that moderate fasting can improve cell-mediated immunity, and with kind of some groups, but it's not for all groups, that helps in boosting the immune system. But then extreme fasting, so moderate fasting might be, say, intermittent fasting, just not eating breakfast and waiting till lunch. But extreme fasting would be, say, not eating for 3 days. That really suppresses the immune system. So I guess if you get sick, just be sensible. Eat what kind of looks good, sounds good, and sensibly is good. Don't rely on sugar. If you're not hungry, you don't have to eat. That's your body's way of saying you don't need to eat right now. Your body's way of saying I'm busy, don't put anything more in me. But if you can eat soups, stews, warm things, herbal teas, get lots of fluid in you, all really important.
Love it. So for you, going into the fall, what is your favorite or your go-to kind of nutritionally dense, yummy fall foods that you really like to enjoy?
At the moment, I've been making soups, because the soups that I make typically for the week are nothing but vegetables and herbs and spices. And so it's just, for me, a way of eating salad that is not cold. I love salads, but in the winter, I just... in the UK, it gets so cold here. So all the soups and casseroles. And you don't have to eat particularly festive food. I think it's important to remember, like I was saying, you don't have to eat breakfast food for breakfast. You don't have to eat festive food just because that's what someone tells you. If soup sounds good to you, eat soup. If, I don't know, meatloaf sounds good to you instead of turkey on Christmas Day, eat meatloaf. But yeah, soups are my thing at the moment. How about you? What's your thing?
Pasta fagioli is probably one of my favorite things to make, and I probably don't even make it right. But again, it's pouring some beans and tomato sauce and some spices and the little circle pastas, little cylinders, and I throw it all in and hope for the best. So maybe I'll try a hand at some of the soups you're making. Try a soup, because soups are easy. I can handle that. But I like good pasta and meatless grounds and sauce, but some protein in there as well, and veggies, lots of broccoli. Broccoli is my probably go-to vegetable that I eat the most, for sure.
Easy.
And it's got vitamin C in it. So
it does have lots of vitamin C.
It is so interesting, the one thing that you mentioned about the breakfast foods and how we've identified certain foods as breakfast versus lunch or dinner, and why this one meal isn't, like, why can't we eat broccoli at breakfast? It's you can, and who made that
permission? You can.
There's no rule. We're adults. We can eat whatever we want at whatever time of day, and you make those decisions. But it's also not this like societally set up rule that you can't eat last night's leftovers for breakfast the next morning.
And the same with things like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to say that you have to eat pumpkin pie and you have to eat, lots of roast potatoes or chocolate cake, or I don't know what you guys typically have at Thanksgiving, but actually on Christmas Day, turkey, it's really high in protein. It's really low in fat. It's got great omega-3s, Brussels sprouts, parsnips, chestnuts. They are all so good for you. There's so many good Christmas and Thanksgiving and winter foods. You don't have to rely on the society's crap.
Yes, you don't. I'm excited to try
delicious.
Yes, those roasted parsnips I'm excited to try. So I'm going to find some. I don't even know where they live in my grocery store. So that's step number 1, is locating. I know where, obviously, the general vegetable section, but.
Do you guys call parsnips?
Yes.
You do. I get confused with vegetables. You call something rutabaga, which we call something.
Oh, rutabagas. I've never had a rutabaga.
Turnip or something. Yeah.
There's turnips too. I wonder if turnips and parsnips are the same. These are things that I'm going to have to look at before I actually go to the grocery store, or I'm going to search around for something that doesn't even exist here. But I believe so. But it's a learning experience. And again, if you go to the store and you can't find something, ask. But it's this learning experience and trying new things. And for me, the way that Brussels sprouts are cooked, I don't like the texture. It's not that I don't like the taste, it's the texture for me. And it's something that I just don't eat. But there's loads of other vegetables to try out there. And there's probably like rutabaga. I've never had that. It's a vegetable.
Yeah. And working out the ways to cook something as well. I think this is we're over time already, and this is a topic for another time. But the way that we cook vegetables, particularly when we introduce kids to them, typically we just boil them in water and serve them up I'm not surprised that most kids hate vegetables. Actually, a little bit of something fatty like butter or coconut oil or olive oil, a little bit of salt, and suddenly vegetables taste a whole lot nicer. I bet if you thinly slice sprouts and you pan fried them in a little olive oil and salt and some seasoning, you probably really like them because they're not sludgy and smushy. They're crunchy and flavorful and delicious. And actually not too different from broccoli stalk. So
I'll give it a try. I'm going to try all the new foods thanks to you. So
I'm a veggie fan. We're going to get you cooking lots more.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So I'm so excited for food going into fall and kind of tackling those different perspectives and goals. So thank you so much for expanding on that. We can talk about these for hours, and that's why we're breaking them up into smaller little manageable chunks. So thank you guys so much for listening. As always, if you have any questions for us on this episode or any episode in the past, please reach out. Please ask us any questions via Instagram. Mine is at emily.a.mccrae. And to find Jo, you can find her at the Behavior Lady. Remember, she is in the UK, so that's spelled with a U. And yeah.
And so a quick disclaimer from me. We are both behavior analysts and we're both qualified in our respective fields, but this podcast is just for education, information and sharing. So shouldn't be taken as personal, medical or behavioral advice or services.
Wonderful. It's so good to chat with you. Go make some vegetables, go to the grocery store, meal prep for the week, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
See you soon.
Bye.